All right, get ready to dive deep today. We're tackling some pretty profound stuff about life suffering and what it even means to achieve mastery.
Mastery, yeah.
You sent us a single audio clip
Okay.
called La Vida del Maestro, which, right off the bat, kind of hints at some pretty deep philosophical or spiritual teachings. Maybe even both. Who knows?
Right. Yeah, the speaker in this clip, they don't waste any time. They jump right into it. They start by drawing this really sharp contrast between two ways of being in the world. They describe one as the human life, which I think a lot of us listening can probably relate to. It's marked by this constant struggle,
Hmm.
limitations, and honestly, a whole lot of suffering.
Yeah, and it's like they really hit the nail on the head with the examples they give, right? Always
Right.
wanting a bigger house or a fancier car or that next promotion at work. It's like this endless cycle of striving for more, even when, and this is the key, I think, even when we already have enough to be happy and comfortable.
It's so true. And I've definitely been caught in that trap myself.
Yeah, me too. And it's exhausting, always chasing after that next thing, thinking it's going to finally bring us happiness.
And the speaker suggests that this striving, this never-ending sense of not being satisfied, that's actually at the core of how we experience life as humans. Or at least that's how they see it.
Okay, so where does the maestro come in? What's the alternative?
Well, the speaker contrasts that human life with what they call the maestro's life. And this is where things get really interesting. They describe it as a life of ease, abundance, and just pure joy.
Okay, hold on. I gotta stop you right there. Ease, abundance, joy. Those are some pretty big claims.
I know, right? It sounds almost too good to be true.
It does. It's like they're describing this effortless flow where everything just falls into place perfectly.
That's a great way to put it. Like, imagine a life where you never have to worry about your basic needs being met.
Okay, now that's the part where I start to get a little skeptical.
I hear you. It definitely sounds a bit idealistic.
It does, but then again, wouldn't it be amazing if it were actually possible?
Right. And that's what the speaker is inviting us to explore. The possibility that there's another way of being in the world.
So how do we get there? What's the secret? What does it take to make that shift from this human life of striving and suffering to this maestro way of being?
Well, buckle up because this is where things get really thought-provoking. The speaker suggests that suffering is actually a choice.
Wait, hold on. A choice. So much of the suffering in the world feels completely outside of our control, like it's just happening to us. Wars, natural disasters, illness, loss. Are you saying we're choosing all of that?
That's where it gets interesting, right? They're not saying we're choosing the external circumstances. Those are often beyond our control. What they're suggesting is that we have a choice in how we respond to those circumstances.
Okay. I'm starting to see the distinction.
They argue that much of our suffering comes from all the conditioning we've absorbed. From society, from our families, from religious beliefs, from all sorts of places. And we unconsciously choose to suffer because we've been taught that it's inevitable, just part of the human experience.
That's a pretty radical concept. It really makes you rethink everything you thought you knew about suffering. But if it is a choice, then that means we have the power to choose differently, to choose a life that's free from suffering.
Right. And that's what the maestro embodies.
Mm.
Someone who has made that choice, who has stepped outside of that cycle of suffering and embraced a different way of being in the world.
So how do they do that? What's their secret?
That brings us to one of the most captivating ideas in this audio, the leap of faith.
Ooh, a leap of faith. Sounds dramatic. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, the speaker describes it as jumping into the void, which, yeah, it sounds a little scary, right? It's this idea of surrendering control and trusting in something larger than yourself.
It's surrendering control. Yeah, that's a big one for a lot of us, I think.
I know, me too. It goes against everything we've been taught about how to succeed in life. But the speaker suggests that it's actually the key to unlocking a whole new level of freedom and fulfillment.
So what does that actually look like, this leap of faith?
They don't get too specific about the how in this clip. It's more about the what's. It's about that inner shift, that willingness to let go of the need to control everything, and to trust that you're being guided and supported by something bigger than yourself.
Oh, that's something bigger. What is it exactly? God, the universe, destiny. What does the speaker say?
They use several different terms throughout the audio. Soul, divinity, higher power. It seems to be pretty open to interpretation, which I kind of appreciate.
Yeah, me too. It allows each listener to connect with the concept in a way that resonates with their own beliefs.
Exactly. But ultimately, it's about trusting in something beyond your own limited understanding.
And taking that leap into the unknown, even though it might feel terrifying.
Exactly.
Because let's be honest, it does sound terrifying. To just let go of everything you think you know and just trust that things will work out? That's a huge ask.
Oh, absolutely. And the speaker acknowledges that. They say it takes immense courage to make this leap. You're facing your fears, your doubts, all those primal urges to cling to what feels safe and familiar.
Even if it's not actually serving us.
Right. And the speaker is very clear that there's no turning back. Once you make this choice, once you jump into that void, there's no going back to the way things were before.
Wow, a point of no return. That's pretty intense.
It is. But the speaker suggests that the rewards are pretty extraordinary. They describe a life where everything flows effortlessly, where problems seem to resolve themselves. They even talk about never having to worry about their table being bare. Like there's this deep inner knowing that their needs will always be met, that abundance will flow to them.
Okay, now that's the part where I need a little more convincing. Effortlessly,
hmm
really. I think we all know life throws some curveballs. What does that even look like in the context of the maestro? What are some concrete examples?
Well, it's not necessarily about things magically falling into your lap. It's more about that inner shift in perspective. They describe it as having this deep sense of trust that even when challenges arise, the right people, the right opportunities, the right resources will show up at the perfect time. It's about having faith that everything is working out for your highest good, even if you can't see it in the moment.
So it's like this underlying sense of faith that the universe or whatever force you believe in has your back.
Exactly. And that's what allows the maestro to navigate life's challenges with a sense of ease and grace.
That makes sense. So it's not about avoiding the storms altogether, but rather changing our relationship to them.
Right. That's a great way to put it. It's about learning to dance in the rain instead of getting soaked and miserable.
I like that analogy. Okay, so we're starting to paint a picture here of what this maestro's life might look like. A life of ease, flow, abundance, and deep trust in the universe. But I think we need to dig a little deeper into how this human tendency to control things actually ties into suffering. What does the speaker say about that?
They're really clear about that. The desire to control everything, to micromanage every aspect of our lives. That's one of the biggest traps that keeps us stuck in that cycle of suffering. They say we've become so accustomed to trying to fix everything, to solve every problem, that we've forgotten our natural state of ease and abundance.
So they're saying we're actually designed to live in this effortless flow, but we've somehow convinced ourselves that it's not possible.
That's a great way to put it. And that clinging to control, that's what leads to all the striving, the lack, the feeling they were never enough.
I can totally relate to that. It's like we're always trying to force things to go our way instead of just allowing ourselves to be carried by the current.
That's a perfect analogy. And it doesn't just apply to our personal lives. The speaker also talks about how we often look outside of ourselves for guidance, for validation, for approval. We give our power away to authority figures, institutions, or even belief systems that tell us how we should be living.
So instead of trusting our own inner wisdom, we're letting others dictate how we should think, feel, and behave.
Exactly. And that's another way we perpetuate that cycle of suffering.
It's fascinating how the speaker connects all of these seemingly disparate ideas. The desire for control, the tendency to look outside ourselves for answers, and the choice to suffer. It's like they're all intertwined.
They are. The more we try to control, the more we feel separate from our true self, from the natural flow of life, and the more we suffer. And the more we look to others for guidance, the less we trust our own inner compass, our own intuition, our own ability to make wise choices.
And it sounds like the leap of faith is all about breaking free from these patterns. It's about reclaiming our power, trusting our intuition, and aligning with that state of ease and abundance that the speaker describes.
Exactly. It's a radical shift in perspective. Instead of fighting against life, you're surrendering to it, trusting that everything is unfolding as it should.
That sounds beautiful in theory, but I'm curious about what it actually feels like to make that shift. What does the speaker say about the experience of letting go of control and surrendering to something bigger than yourself? Is it blissful and easy? Or is it more complicated than that?
Well, they acknowledge that it's not always sunshine and roses.
Yeah.
Especially at first, there can be some growing pains for sure.
I can imagine. You're basically rewiring your entire way of being in the world. It's like unlearning everything you thought you knew about how life works.
Exactly. They talk about feeling a surge of fear and doubt, especially in the beginning. Those old patterns of control and self-reliance, they tend to resurface. They try to
Yeah.
pull you back into that comfort zone, even though you know it's not really serving you anymore.
So it's like you're taking this leap of faith, you're jumping into the void, but then a part of you is still clinging to the edge, terrified of letting go completely.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. There's this inner struggle between the old way of being and this new way that you're trying to embrace.
So how do you navigate that struggle? How do you stay the course when everything inside of you is screaming to turn back?
The speaker emphasizes the importance of cultivating trust, even when it feels incredibly difficult. It's about remembering that you're not alone in this process, that there's a force greater than yourself that's supporting you, even if you can't see it or fully understand it.
It sounds like it takes a lot of courage and faith to really embrace this way of being. But the rewards, as the speaker describes them, seem pretty extraordinary. This idea of moving from a state of scarcity to a state of abundance, from struggle to ease, from fear to love, it's a powerful vision.
It is, and it's not just some pie-in-the-sky ideal. The speaker offers some really concrete examples of what this looks like in everyday life.
Okay, I'm all ears. Give me some examples. Because I think that's where a lot of people get stuck. It's like, okay, this all sounds great in theory, but how does it actually play out in the real world?
Well, for instance, they talk about how the maestro doesn't need to constantly strive or worry about their basic needs being met. There's this deep inner knowing that they will always be provided for. They use this really powerful image of their table always being full.
I love that image. It speaks to a deep sense of trust in the abundance of the universe, not just material wealth, but that underlying faith that everything you need will be provided at the right time.
Exactly. And this trust extends to all areas of life. The maestro trusts that the right people will come into their life at the right time, that the right opportunities will present themselves, that the resources they need will be available. It's about letting go of that white-knuckled grip on the steering wheel and trusting that there's a greater plan unfolding.
It almost sounds like they're living in a state of effortless flow where everything just seems to fall into place perfectly. But I have to ask, does it really work that way? Or is that just wishful thinking?
Well, I don't think it means that life suddenly becomes problem-free. But the maestro has developed this unshakable inner knowing that they are supported, guided, and loved no matter what challenges arise.
It's like they've tapped into this deep wellspring of inner peace that can't be disturbed by the storms of life.
Yes, and they've learned to trust that those storms are actually part of the journey, that they often bring the rain that's needed for growth and transformation.
This is all starting to make sense, but I'm still a little fuzzy on the how.
Yeah.
How do you actually cultivate that level of trust? Where do you even begin?
The speaker doesn't offer a step-by-step guide, but they do emphasize the importance of certain practices that can help us connect with that deeper wisdom and cultivate that inner trust.
Like what? Give us some examples.
Well, they talk about the importance of spending time in nature, of quieting the mind through practices like meditation or prayer, of connecting with our bodies through movement and mindful breathing.
I can see how those practices could help create space for that deeper wisdom to emerge. It's like you're intentionally slowing down, turning down the volume on all the external noise, so you can tune into that quieter, more subtle inner voice.
Exactly. It's about shifting our attention from the external world to the internal world, from the mind to the heart, from doing to being.
That's a powerful shift, and I think that's something we can all benefit from, whether we're striving to become maestros or not.
Absolutely. These are universal principles that can help anyone who's seeking greater peace, clarity, and purpose in life.
This audio is really challenging me to rethink my own beliefs about what's possible. It's like the speaker is inviting us to expand our perception of reality and to embrace a way of being that's so much bigger and more expansive than what we've been conditioned to believe.
It's a mind-blowing concept, isn't it? To think that we might have been selling ourselves short all along. That maybe, just maybe, there's so much more to life than what we've been led to believe.
It's definitely making me question some of my long-held assumptions about how the world works. And it's exciting to think that there might be this whole other level of experience that's available to us if we're willing to open ourselves to it.
And that's what the speaker is ultimately calling us to do, to open ourselves to the possibility that there's more to life than meets the eye, to trust in the unseen forces that are always guiding and supporting us, and to embrace the journey of becoming the maestros of our own lives.
It's a powerful message, and it's one that I think a lot of people are hungry for.
Me too. And this audio offers a glimpse of what that might look like, what it might feel like to live from that place of deep trust, surrender, and alignment with our true selves.
This is where I think a lot of people get tripped up. Because the idea of mastery can sound intimidating, like it implies reaching some kind of superhuman level of perfection. But I get the sense that the speaker is defining mastery in a much more nuanced way.
You're absolutely right. Mastery, as described in this audio, isn't about becoming some kind of flawless, all-knowing being. It's not about eradicating all your flaws or never making mistakes.
So if it's not about perfection, then what is it about?
It's about something much more profound. It's about a fundamental shift in your relationship to yourself, to life, and to the challenges that inevitably arise.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Break this down for me. What are the key elements of this shift in perspective?
Well, one of the core principles of mastery, as the speaker describes it, is the ability to approach life with a sense of trust and surrender, rather than resistance and control.
That echoes what we were talking about earlier, the idea of jumping into the void and letting go of the need to control everything.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that there's a greater intelligence at play, a universal flow that's always guiding us toward our highest good, even if we can't see it in the moment.
So instead of trying to force things to go our way, we're learning to align with that flow and trust that we're being supported every step of the way.
Precisely. And this surrender isn't about becoming passive or giving up our personal power. It's about aligning with a power that's far greater than our own limited human will.
It's like we're tapping into a universal source of wisdom and strength that's always available to us, but we have to be willing to let go of our own ego's grip on the steering wheel.
Exactly. And the speaker emphasizes that as we cultivate this sense of trust and surrender, we naturally begin to experience more ease, flow, and abundance in our lives.
It sounds like we're moving from a state of efforting to a state of allowing, from a place of scarcity to a place of limitless possibility.
That's beautifully put. And this shift in perspective has a profound impact on how we experience challenges.
Okay, let's talk about challenges, because let's be real, life is full of them. How does the speaker suggest we approach difficulties from this place of mastery?
Well, they emphasize that the maestro doesn't get bogged down by the drama or the need to control the outcome. They approach challenges with a sense of curiosity and openness, seeing them as opportunities for growth and learning.
So instead of resisting the challenges, we're leaning into them, embracing them as part of the journey.
Exactly. And this shift in attitude allows the maestro to navigate difficulties with grace and resilience. They don't get thrown off course by setbacks or unexpected twists and turns. They trust that everything is unfolding as it should, even if it doesn't make sense in the moment.
It's like they have this unshakable inner knowing that they're going to be okay no matter what life throws their way. Imagine the feeling of unwavering certainty, like a deep well of inner peace that can't be disturbed by the storms of life.
Yes, and the speaker emphasizes that this sense of inner strength and resilience isn't something you have to earn or achieve. It's already within you, waiting to be uncovered.
It's like we all have this innate capacity for mastery, but we've been conditioned to believe that we're powerless, that we're at the mercy of external circumstances.
Exactly. And this audio is an invitation to reclaim that power, to remember who we truly are, and to step into our full potential.
I'm so drawn to this idea of remembering our true nature. It feels so much more empowering than trying to achieve some external definition of success or happiness.
Absolutely. And the speaker reminds us that this journey of self-discovery is an ongoing process. It's not about reaching some kind of fixed destination, but rather about continually expanding our awareness, deepening our connection to the divine, and embracing all that life has to offer.
It sounds like a beautiful and liberating way to live.
It is. And the speaker encourages us to approach this journey with a sense of playfulness and curiosity, to allow ourselves to be surprised and delighted by the unfolding of our own unique path.
I love that. It's a reminder that life is meant to be enjoyed, not endured.
Exactly. And the maestro knows how to savor every moment, to find joy in the simple things, and to appreciate the beauty that surrounds them.
It's like they've cultivated a deep sense of gratitude for the gift of life itself.
Yes. And that gratitude flows outward, inspiring them to share their gifts with the world and to make a positive impact on those around them. It really makes you think, doesn't it, about how we can use our gifts to make the world a better place.
It does. And it's not just about grand gestures or becoming some kind of superhero. It's about those small, everyday acts of kindness, compassion, and understanding that ripple outward and create a more loving and harmonious world.
Exactly. It's about bringing that maestro energy into every interaction, every situation, no matter how big or small.
So it's about becoming more mindful, more present, more intentional in everything we do.
Yes. And that's where the real transformation happens, I think. Not in some grand dramatic moment, but in those subtle shifts in our everyday awareness and behavior.
This deep dive is really making me think about my own life and the choices I'm making. It's so easy to get caught up in the busyness of life, The to-do lists, the deadlines, the constant stream of information and demands on our time, and we lose sight of what really matters.
It's so true. We get swept up in that whirlwind of activity and forget to nurture our inner selves, to connect with our deeper purpose, to simply be present and enjoy the beauty of life.
And that's what the maestro reminds us to do, right? To slow down, to tune in, to reconnect with our hearts and souls, to remember that life is a gift, not a burden.
Beautifully said. And to approach that gift with a sense of reverence, gratitude, and wonder.
I love that. It's like we're being invited to rediscover the magic of life, to see the world through the eyes of a child again.
Exactly. And tap into that sense of awe and wonder that we often lose as we grow older.
You know, one thing that really struck me about this audio is the speaker's emphasis on the interconnectedness of everything. It's not about achieving some kind of isolated individual enlightenment, but rather about recognizing our inherent connection to something much greater than ourselves.
You're right. They make it clear that we're all part of this vast web of life. Our actions, thoughts, and intentions, they all have a ripple effect. Everything we do impacts the whole. It's a pretty humbling thought.
It is, and it's also incredibly empowering to know that we have the capacity to make a difference, not just in our own lives, but in the world around us.
Absolutely. And the sense of interconnectedness is at the heart of the maestro's life. They understand that their well-being is inextricably linked to the well-being of all beings, so they act accordingly.
So it's not about retreating from the world and focusing solely on personal enlightenment, but rather about bringing that light and wisdom into the world and using it to make a difference.
Exactly. The speaker believes that the maestro has a responsibility to share their gifts, to guide others, to help create a more loving and compassionate society.
I love how this audio challenges the stereotype of the spiritual seeker as someone who's detached from the world, living in some ivory tower. Instead, it presents a vision of spirituality that's deeply engaged with the challenges of our time.
It's about rolling up our sleeves and getting involved, using our unique gifts and talents to make a positive impact.
I'm curious, does the speaker offer any specific examples of how the maestro might contribute to the world? What does this kind of active, engaged spirituality look like in practice?
Well, they talk about the importance of radiating love, compassion, and understanding, especially in times of conflict and division. It's about being peacemakers, bridge builders, helping to heal the wounds that divide us.
So it's about embodying those qualities of the heart and letting them guide our actions in the world.
Yes, and speaking truth to power, challenging injustice, standing up for those who are marginalized and oppressed.
It's about using our voices to create a more just and equitable society for all.
Absolutely. And the speaker also encourages us to use our unique gifts and talents in service to the greater good, whether that's through our work, our creative expression, our acts of service in our communities, or simply by being kind and compassionate in our everyday interactions.
I think this is a good place to start wrapping up. This has been such a thought-provoking deep dive, and I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of this profound teaching.
I agree. There's so much to unpack here. And I think it's a message that will continue to unfold and reveal new layers of meaning as we integrate it into our lives.
What are some of the key takeaways you hope our listeners will walk away with today?
Well, I hope they'll remember that they have the power to choose a different path, a path that leads to greater peace, joy, and fulfillment, a path that's aligned with their true nature and their highest purpose.
It's about remembering who we truly are, those magnificent beings capable of incredible love, creativity, and wisdom, and it's about trusting in the unseen forces that are always guiding and supporting us on this journey called life.
Beautifully said. And I hope our listeners will feel inspired to take that leap of faith, to embrace the unknown, and to step into their full potential as maestros of their own lives.
This has been such a rich and inspiring conversation. Thank you for sharing your insights with us.
It's been a pleasure.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you'll continue to explore these ideas and to share your own insights and experiences with us. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, may you trust the process, embrace the unknown, and allow your inner maestro to shine brightly.